Alright, we are now ready to start playing Elder Sign, and before we get going, there is one additional step during setup. Everything is basically set up right now, but as we can see here on this adventure card, there is actually a locked dice icon, and it's green, so that means that we have to lock one of our green dice from the dice pool before we even start the game. So now we have 5 green dice available to all of our investigators until we resolve the adventure card in question, and then the dice is freed from that card. The first thing that you do when you start playing the game after you have done all of the initial setup is you have to resolve an event card, a mythos card, and we will be doing that right now. And this is the card that we took a look at during the setup introduction of the series, and it says basically the top part is the one that you always resolve immediately, and then it has some additional effect, either a lingering effect or a midnight effect on the bottom part. The top part says the stars align, add 1 doom token to the doom track. So let's do that. We take one of these doom tokens. Let's see, we can add it to the doom track. And then we take a look at the lingering effect, or in this case it's just it's an effect that gets resolved immediately. It says above an open door. Place 1 additional adventure card below the others in play. After resolving that adventure card, do not replace it with a new card. So let's do that immediately, and let's see, I'll just slightly move the camera so we can have some more room here. I will draw one of these new adventure cards and I will place it here, and this is a fairly simple one, and it says a peculiar specimen. Another thing that I these mythos cards are left in play if they have an effect, but you can still leave them in play just to remember what mythos card you are on. So I will leave it in play next to the clock to actually remind me that I have to draw a new mythos card during the next midnight phase of the game. One thing that I think I forgot to talk about is resolving these adventure cards. Some adventure cards, like this one for example, has this arrow here on the left side, and that means that you have to resolve this adventure in order. There is actually an investigator that can resolve any number of these tasks per dice roll. Normally you only get to resolve 1 of these, so you have to toss your dice and resolve this task, then you have to move on to this task, and then you have to move on to the last task. The investigator in question, I don't actually remember who it was, but they can resolve multiple tasks. This icon still applies. You have to resolve them in this order. So I think it's a she. She can resolve both of these at the same time, but she cannot resolve the top one and the bottom one at the same time. She has to resolve them in order as well. So yeah, that's just a quick look, and this was a peculiar specimen. Not that difficult of a card. It's a bit more difficult because you have to resolve it in order. The other cards you can actually pick and choose which one. And now looking at the board, I actually see that we have let's see, 4 of these cards that we have to resolve in order, and 3 of them that we can resolve in whatever manner we would like. So now my investigators can start taking turns, and I will be going clockwise, starting off with Gloria, then Pete, then Jenny. Looking at the board, we actually have some fairly difficult adventures here, and I don't really know what I should focus on, but what I do know is I want to free that die as soon as possible, but I think I will wait until it's Jenny's turn, because she can add the yellow and the red die by discarding one of her items. So for Gloria, I think that I will have a go at this adventure up here, which is the security office. It is an adventure that you have to resolve in order, but the penalty is not that harsh. It's only 2 sanity, and she actually has 6 sanity, so she could take that if she would fail. This task also just requires you to roll investigation tokens. So I will have a go at that adventure with Gloria, so I will move Gloria onto the card to signify that she is now in this room trying to resolve this adventure and trying to resolve this mystery, and she gets to roll five green dice for this task in question. She does have a spell where she can focus one of her, or secure it's called for the spells, where she can secure one of her dice rolls, and I think if we gain a peril marker, which is this skull marker, if we get that on one of the dice and fail the adventure, I will actually try to focus or secure one of those perils onto the spell, because then Jenny can actually use that peril die from Gloria, take it from Gloria and complete the adventure in question up there. But yeah, let's see, let's roll for Gloria. She needs a lot of investigation tokens. Okay, so that was terrible. Terrible roll. Luckily, well, I hope that you can see, luckily there are no terror effects on the adventure in question. If there is a terror effect on the adventure card, if you roll a terror token and fail to complete one of the tasks on the adventure card, then you resolve the terror effect. So for instance here it says terror, lose 1 stamina. So in this case, if this was the case for our card, Gloria would now have to lose 1 stamina before you do anything else. So you cannot discard the terror dice before you resolve this effect. For Gloria to continue trying to resolve this, she would have to remove one of these, one of the dice, and roll just 4 dice for the next part. Sadly, we only needed 2 investigation tokens to actually complete the first part of the adventure, and she didn't even roll that. So I'm not that confident that Gloria can actually do this. So instead, first of all, well, actually, I think we will choose to fail this immediately. First of all, you would discard one of the dice, so I would discard this die. Now we have 4 dice left, but I really want to try and complete this adventure as soon as possible. So I think that instead of continuing on, I will just choose to secure this peril die on her spell, which is, let's see, it's Flesh Ward. So I will choose to secure the spell or the dice on the Flesh Ward and choose to fail the adventure. And let's see if I can place. Here we go. So now we have secured that die for future turns, and now since she failed, she gets to take the penalty for failing, which is losing 2 sanity. So she is down to 4 sanity from 6 sanity. And Gloria's turn is over, so now we advance the clock as the final step of a investigation turn. Okay, so now it's Ashcan Pete. There is some benefit having an additional investigator on this same. Maybe I should have, for this reason, maybe I should have actually gone to the adventure card that I wanted to resolve, because that just has a penalty of 1 stamina. On the other hand, losing stamina with Gloria is not that. I mean, it's pretty risky because she only has 4 stamina in, and it's pretty hard to both heal stamina and sanity. So if you can focus on one, because she has such a high amount of sanity, if you manage to heal her fully with sanity, she has extra turns to take before becoming insane, basically. I mean, I'm not explaining this in such a great detail, but I think you understand. There's much less risk involved if you play with the resource that you have the most of. Anyway, for the "Did you hear that?" adventure question, which has locked one of our dice, the penalty for losing that is losing stamina, and Ashcan Pete actually has 6 stamina, so I think that he can afford to take a risk, and he moves on to the "Did you hear that?" Basically, he could go to the entrance, but we don't have any trophies, he doesn't have anything to spend. We could try this search lost and found, which could be an idea actually. And he cannot, well, I don't think he can make this, so I will do that actually. I was kind of a bit hasty there. I will go to the entrance and I will try to search the lost and found area, see what happens. If you fail, you get to either lose a stamina or sanity, and he can choose to lose a stamina because he has quite a lot of the stamina stat. So let's roll a die, and that's a terror token, or terror side of the die, and for the terror it says gain 1 spell. So that was pretty good actually. Let's see what he draws. He draws Wither. So now he also has this extra focused die spell that he can secure dice on for future adventures. Alright, so now we move on and the clock moves to 6 o'clock. And it's now Jenny Barnes' turn. Like I previously discussed, she will go to "Did you hear that?" And sadly she only has 4 green dice to play with on this adventure, but we have focused one or secured one of the die results, so she can immediately take that to complete the first part, or we can just save it and roll the dice once to see what happens. But I think it's actually better to complete the adventure in question, the first task in question, and then you get more dice to roll for the second part, which is the more difficult part of this particular adventure. Her special ability is Trust Fund. At the start of her resolution phase, she may discard 1 common item, 1 clue token, or a spell to gain the yellow and the green dice to add them to her dice rolling pool. So she will do this, and I think that she will just discard this lucky cigarette case, which would give her a yellow die, but if we discard it now, we get to take both the yellow and the red die. So she will do this. She will discard a common item, and she will get both of these dice added to her pool. And you have to do this before you start rolling dice for the adventure, so you cannot roll the green dice first and then add the yellow and the red afterwards. You have to decide before you start any rolling what items you want to use for this particular adventure. And I think that she will actually take this focused die here, and she will place it on the first task of the adventure. So she will automatically succeed the first task, and now we get to move on to the second task. And if you succeed a task, you don't have to discard any dice to keep on rolling. There is also an opportunity here to focus dice on the investigators that are on the adventure. This works with multiple investigators. So if, for instance, both her and Ashcan Pete were on this same adventure, she could ask Ashcan Pete for assistance, which would mean that Ashcan Pete will allow her to place a die result on him to try and focus it. The downside of this is if she fails the adventure, both her and Ashcan Pete will receive penalties for trying to attempt this adventure. So that's why you actually have to ask the other person if you want to do this. This doesn't matter in solitaire play, unless you want to ask yourself. Maybe you want to do that. You want to talk to yourself and try and debate why Ashcan Pete should take should have a chance of taking a penalty. You could do that, but in this case it doesn't really matter. She's just alone on the adventure card, so she's the only one that can do this. So we have one locked die, we have already completed the first part of the adventure, and now we roll with our red and yellow die added to the dice pool. We roll for the second part of the adventure. Okay, so that's pretty bad. Unfortunately, it's the red die that has the peril marker on it. No other peril markers. So this is pretty bad. Now we could be smart about this and secure that peril marker on her own spell. She also has one of these shriveling spells, so she could take that red die and place it on her spell over there. But since this is the red die, that would hamper the other people's ability to resolve adventures if they gain extra items and such. So I think instead of that, let's take a chance, let's gamble here, and let's focus this on her. Well, first of all, you have to discard one die. So I will discard this green die, and now it's not part of the roll for future rolls. And now I choose to focus this on her, leaving us with 3 green and 1 yellow die left for rolling further on. So let's do this. Let's keep on rolling. And sadly no peril markers yet again. So this time we cannot focus anything, we cannot do anything to affect the results. We just have to discard one of these, one of the dice in our dice pool, and we now have 3 dice to roll with. Now this is a 50-50 chance of success. So let's hope for the best here then. And no, nothing, so we move on with only 2 dice, and this is what this game is. This is what's going to happen all the time. This adventure is not that difficult. We had 2 extra dice to roll with. We had a focus die, and still we are struggling. It probably will not make it, but let's hope for the best. Yes. There we go. Alright, well, we made it, finally. So now we take this result here, we remove the focused dice up here, the focused result up here, and now we see that we have completed the adventure in question. If I had failed the adventure, the die focused on the investigator would not stay on the table. It will just be removed to the dice pool, or if it was one of the color die, it will just be removed to the side, the yellow or the red die. But luckily we completed, so now we free this this locked die from its prison. We managed to beat the card in question. The rewards, let's just move her here so we can take a look at this. So the red here is the penalty and the white area is the rewards. So Jenny will get, in addition to getting this card as a trophy, and it's worth 2 points as a trophy, in addition to that she will get a spell, a unique item, and there will be a monster spawning somewhere on the board. This is one of the initial 6 cards, so this will be replaced. If we had resolved this 7th here, the card would not be replaced. So you will, first of all, you get the rewards. So let's take the rewards. Let's do this in order. For her spell, she gets Cloud Memory. Discard to fully restore any investigator's sanity. That's pretty good actually. That's great. It's a great card. So let's see, we place that there. Then we get a unique item, and these are pretty powerful. These often add the red die. So let's see, this is an effect. Flute of the Other Gods, this is great. After rolling, discard to defeat one monster. This means that for any monster you immediately complete its task. You don't have to roll any dice, you don't have to pay anything to do that. So this is a great card. This is one of the best cards, I think, as long as you have some monsters in the game. Alright, so those were the two beneficial effects, and then we have to draw a monster, and this is the monster cup. It is double-sided, so I would have to do this blindly. I would have to kind of look away and then draw something here. Let's draw this one. Okay. This is a vampire, I think, yeah. No, it's a warlock. This is a warlock. There is no flavor text, but the text says, return this marker to the cup and gain 2 clue tokens if you manage to defeat this enemy in question. Basically, all the enemies that have a 0 trophy value are returned back to the cup. And this is the warlock ability. Sadly, it will lock the red die, and then you can either roll a peril or a terror side on the die to complete these two. That's what it means when it's divided like this. But before we place this, we refill the adventure slot, because you can actually choose to place this on the new card if you want. So that happens before we place the monster. So let's see. This is the new card, the storage closet. I was told, let's see, I was told the key had been lost, but now the door stood open. So it's pretty lame flavor text, to be honest, on most of these. And this is a terrible card. Well, it's not terrible, but it's not easy either. You have to do this in order, and the last piece is 2 scrolls. So yeah, this is the new space in the museum, and Jenny goes on that space. Alright, so now we have to place our monster, and there is actually a slot on the new card to place the monster, but I think that would make the card in question too hard to deal with. We have 2 slots, no, we have 3 slots where we can place monsters on the cards, and if there are open slots on the cards, you actually have to place the monsters on the cards. For instance, if we had 0 places to place them on the cards themselves, then we could choose to place this underneath a card. So that becomes a 4th, or in this case a 3rd task that you have to complete before this card in question is considered complete. But we have 3 different. We have here at this pond, then we have to the gate to elsewhere, and the storage closet. And I don't know, like, I don't think it really matters. I think this one is bit more difficult than the gate to elsewhere. First off, it has one extra thing that you have to complete before the last task is complete, and it also has a terror effect, which is you immediately fail this adventure. That is a pretty harsh terror effect. There is one investigator that can ignore terror effects, and she is amazing. Actually, just a little, side comment. I think both in this game, well, I'm not really sure in this game, but in Arkham Horror anyway, the best investigator teams are 3 or 4 female characters. They are amazing in that game. I don't know if that was something planned or not, but I think it's great to have strong female characters in a game, and I feel that in this game as well. Many of the female characters are actually pretty strong and key to successfully defeating these elder gods. But okay, let's place this monster, and I think I will place it here to gate to elsewhere. Sadly, I would like to complete this gate to elsewhere, because it actually opens a gate to another world, which is symbolized by this circle here. So you get to draw yet another adventure card. The more adventure cards you have on the table, the easier it is to actually pick and choose which one suits your particular investigator in question. But we do have that unique item that Jenny Barnes got, so maybe we can try and defeat this monster with Jenny Barnes, and she can probably manage to roll the rest of the tasks needed to complete that. She will keep this trophy, and we have to lock the red die on the monster in question, sadly. So we lose yet another die, but on the other hand we now have 6 green dice to roll with as our unmodified roll. Okay, so that was Jenny Barnes' turn, and now the clock advances again. It's now 9 o'clock. And we have come full circle, and we are now back to Gloria. Gloria can choose to remain on the adventure in question, or she can try and resolve some other adventure. I think that, well, most of these are pretty difficult, but I will have a look at them and I will be back shortly. Okay, so the situation is pretty bad, it's pretty dire. I don't know what to do with Gloria. Basically, I'm debating between these two adventures here. The other ones are too hard for her right now. So it's the security office versus the peculiar specimen. The peculiar specimen is a bit more difficult to resolve, but it does get you 1 extra doom token. On the other hand, it spawns 1 new monster, but I don't think the monsters are a big problem right now. So the question is if we should try and roll for roll for an extra ally, or if we should take a gamble and go for the doom token or the elder sign token. Another thing, I had to discard this flesh ward from Gloria. She has used it, and Jenny used the die that was on this card, so this is now discarded. I kind of forgot to do that. You should do that immediately. As soon as you remove the die from this, it's discarded. So this is now used. Like I discussed earlier, this is not like in Arkham Horror where you can keep your stuff as long as you can, as long as you want, unless you have to discard it by some other effect. Anyway, for Gloria, I think it's too dangerous. Well, I think actually this will be better, a peculiar specimen. She does have food, so she can discard instead of taking this effect. There is no terror effect here, and the rewards are great. Even though I would very much like to have some extra dice to use before I attempt this, I think it's better than doing anything else. So let's go for this. We have 3 investigation first, then we have to complete 6 investigation, and then a peril. We have to roll a peril to be completely successful. So let's roll these 6 green die. Okay. Let's see. So if you want to focus a die on your investigator, you have to fail the attempt. So I cannot complete the first task and focus a die on my investigator. That is not allowed. So now what is allowed is I can choose to fail. So I could say that, okay, even though I can succeed the first, I can say that I fail, so I discard 1 dice, and then I take the die in question that I want to focus, and I focus it on my investigator. I don't know, I think it's a bit risky to do that here, since we do need quite a lot of investigation down here. So I think instead of that, I will choose to succeed, and I will take this 3 investigation dice, and I will place it on the first task, which will mean that we have now successfully managed to complete the first part of this card, and we will keep on rolling for the next task, which is 6 investigations. Let's hope for the best here then. Okay, that's interesting. We have 5 investigations and we have 2 perils. Basically the peril is much harder to get. So the question is, well, the thing is, if we focus a peril now, we have to discard the other die, and then we have 3 dice to roll to get 6 investigation. That basically means we need to roll 2 3 investigation sides, which is probably harder than rolling. Well, it's not. I think it's the same. It doesn't really matter, does it? No, it doesn't really matter what I do here. It's the same chance that we will get the results we need. So I will just discard this dice in question, and I'll choose to focus one of these peril die on Gloria, and then we have 3 dice, and we know. Well, actually, I do need to complete this, so I will. Yeah, let's do it like this. I will focus the 3 investigation dice on her, and now this gives us a much better chance, I think. Yeah, well, it's basically, I think it's the same. I'm not doing the math correctly, but let's roll and see what happens. In this game, if you are unsure, just roll the die and you see if you fail or not. No, failure. So now we cannot focus anything else, and this is now pretty bad. We now need that. We need a roll of 3 investigation, otherwise this is failed. No. Alright. Sadly, because this was a card that you have to complete the tasks in order, I couldn't have completed the peril down here. And I rolled a lot of perils for some reason and not that many investigation at all. But that's how it goes. That's what dice rolling is all about. So now Gloria would suffer the penalty of this card, and poor Gloria has not managed to actually do anything in this game so far. But instead of taking that hit, she will actually discard her food card here. It says discard this card instead of losing 1 stamina, so she does not take any damage at all. But she now has no items whatsoever, and is in a pretty bad shape actually. You do need those items to keep. You need momentum basically. So I think Jenny Barnes has the best chance so far because she has kept her momentum. She has used one of her cards to gain 2 other cards, and she has kept her momentum forward, so she can actually do a lot of stuff. Pete is in okay shape as well. He has also succeeded. But Gloria is kind of behind right now. Anyway, we move on, and the clock is now at 12. It strikes midnight, and this means that we have to resolve midnight effects. There are no midnight effects so far. There was no midnight effect on this card, on the previous Mythos event card, and there are no midnight effects on the adventures in question, so we do not need to resolve any midnight effects. So we draw a new event card. Strange sights. A monster appears is the first part of this card, so we now have to spawn a monster. That's a pretty good one. That's a cultist, I think. No, it's a ghoul. It's even better. Let's see what the flavor text says. It looked up at me from where it was hunched over the half-eaten body of one of the guards. Okay. It's worth 1 point if we manage to defeat it, and it's pretty easy to defeat. These green spaces here are just empty spaces, so this this monster just takes 2 investigation to defeat, and that's great. That's awesome. We now have to place this. We now have to place this on one of the 2 remaining monster spaces here. And let's see here. We get 1 elder sign and some other goodies down here. It's a pretty difficult task too. So maybe down there. Yeah, this would just lower this card by 1 investigation. So I think I will place it down here. Raising our chances of actually succeeding to complete this adventure in future efforts. Let's take a look at the other part of the card. In the lurking shadows. The next time the clock strikes midnight, all investigators lose 2 sanity. So that this is a midnight effect that will occur next time the clock strikes midnight. And most of these are pretty bad. As you can see, 2 sanity is quite a lot. Poor Pete, it's half of his sanity, so he goes half insane. He will go half insane during the next day. Okay, so that was Gloria's turn, and we will now keep on going. So it's Ashcan Pete's turn, and my plan for this day is for Jenny to resolve this Gate to Elsewhere card. She does have that, she can defeat a monster immediately, so we don't even have to roll for the monster in question. We only need to get those 2 scrolls. I think she can do that without any help actually, so I will leave that to her. And now the question becomes, where will Ashcan Pete go? And these other cards are pretty dangerous for him actually. He doesn't have any great items, and our red die is tied up on this adventure card, and we will have to wait for Jenny to free it before we can use it with some special cards and abilities. Not that Ashcan Pete actually has any of those, but I think it would be a better idea to try and get this elder sign down here, even though it spawns a new monster on the last card that we have a monster slot on. I think it's important to try and keep up with the old one, gaining the Doom tokens on the Doom track, because if you fall behind it can be pretty dangerous. It only has 12 steps. I think it looks like it's one of the harder older gods. I haven't played against Yog, but 12 spaces is it's quite a low number. It doesn't give you much time to do a whole lot with. So I think that Ashcan Pete will go from the entrance, and he will join Gloria here at the peculiar specimen, and they will together try to get this elder sign. The penalty for failing this task is also quite mild. It's just a 1 stamina loss. Pete will not use any of his items. He doesn't have anything that adds dice. He does have the dog, which can negate one of these penalties, but this is a too mild one to actually consider that. He does have a spell, so maybe he can, if we fail here again, maybe he can focus one of the, or secure one of the dice for future rolls. The question then will become what that dice should be. I think we do need quite a lot of scrolls on these adventures, so maybe a scroll. Also maybe a peril. There are some peril markers around here. But I will pause and think about that later on. First we start off here, and he will now resolve this card. So he will roll his 6 green dice. Okay, that is terrible. That's pretty bad actually. Once again, we don't roll any investigation tokens at all, or investigation markers, but I think since this is a failed roll, there are no terror effects to resolve. We will discard this dice here, die here, and then we will focus this peril die on Ashcan Pete. Hopefully, well, that's actually quite risky. I have to think about this. Alright, so instead of focusing the die on his character, I've decided that Pete should focus it on his wither spell, keeping it for future cards here, or if we do get lucky and manage to get to the last part here, we can just use that die from there. So now he has 4 dice left to keep on rolling, and he has yet to complete a task on this adventure. See? And we now have one of these 3 investigations, so I will place that on the first, and then we get to keep on rolling the dice for dice. Come on. Let's just roll. Roll, just roll. Yeah, that was a good roll by me. Less talking, more rolling. Okay. That's pretty bad. 2, a 1 and a 1. Discard 1. Keep 2. That's a 3. Yeah, that's a failed adventure. Sadly, something happened with the die over here. I think I hit it with the other dice, but there we go. We do have a peril die tied up over there, so that's fine. Unfortunately, Pete failed, and he has to take 1 stamina loss for this failed adventure over here. The clock moves forward. It's now 3 o'clock, and it's now Jenny Barnes' turn, and Jenny will move to gate to elsewhere. She will roll her dice. She can only complete 1 of these. Well, actually this doesn't matter, since the monster is in the first spot here. Even after we roll the dice, we can only complete 1 of these, and we have to go with the monster first. So instead of doing that, instead of wasting time on rolling and waste time on talking instead, I will use this Flute of the Other Gods to immediately defeat the monster in question here, freeing our red die and gaining this Warlock. It says return this marker to the cup and gain 2 clue tokens. So she now has 2 clue tokens, and these are the clue tokens, look like footprints. These give you rerolls, so you can choose to reroll either all the dice or just the ones that you are unhappy with. So she now has 2 clue tokens here. We get to continue on now. This adventure is complete, even though it's showing here this was the monster adventure and it is complete. So she only needs to complete the last adventure to be successful here. Those are 2 scrolls. So we need 2 scrolls. Okay, we have 1 scroll. There is no terror effect, so she will discard 1 die. She will focus the other, and we will roll again. That's pretty bad. There's no scroll. That's bad again. No scroll. And no scroll. Damn it. Oh, damn it. I have to check something. Yep, I was correct. If you're wondering why I didn't use my clue tokens to reroll, you can't do that. You actually gain the monster after the resolution phase. But I choose to sometimes do it immediately, but then I have to be disciplined and not use those clue tokens, because you would get them now after I had failed to do this task in question. And this is pretty bad. I probably should have focused a scroll with Pete to be completely certain of completing the task in question, because we really needed, we both needed to free the red die, and it would be great to have an other world adventure for Gloria to get into, because she can get free dice in the other world when she's on a other world adventure. But sadly we failed, and this time around it's actually a doom token that gets added, which is pretty bad. So now, as the penalty for failing, the old one gets yet another doom token. So Yog-Sothoth is at 2 doom tokens, and we have 0 elder signs, so we are falling behind. Jenny's turn is over, and the clock moves to 6 o'clock. And it's now Gloria's turn. Once again, I think that I will just keep Gloria, and well, this is a pretty difficult, or it has turned out to be a pretty difficult adventure, but we now have Pete's focused dice over there, so we will stay here. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice. Okay, so drank some water, hopefully my voice is back. We move on here. Gloria attempts this adventure as well. I will not try to speed this up, not to talk as much, just take some actions. I don't think that, I think a lot of people know this game, they understand this game, so I don't have to really explain what I'm doing. Maybe sometimes I need to explain what I'm thinking and so, but I think I can speed this up a bit, so as to not make this another 9-hour long gameplay video that shouldn't be 9 hours long. So yeah, Gloria tries to resolve a peculiar specimen here. Ashcan Pete is on the same card, so he can actually help her. Let's roll the die. We only have 5 dice left because we have focused one of the, or we have secured one result, which can actually help us in this situation. So let's roll and see what happens. That is once again a pretty bad result. We could actually resolve the first part of the card, but then we have to roll double 3 investigation to be successful in the middle task here, and that's pretty rough. I don't think we can do that. So I think we will gamble here and remove one of the dice and roll again. And that's terrible. That's just awful, awful, awful. We move on. Poor Gloria. Poor Gloria. Yeah, she just fails. She failed. Poor Gloria. And now she takes one damage, 1 stamina loss from failing. Clock moves up to 9 o'clock. And it's now Ashcan Pete's turn, and he also does the same thing here. We roll with 5 dice to begin with, and that's good. We have 3 investigation die here, so we will complete the first task. And come on, this is a 50-50 chance. Come on. That's pretty good actually. Let's see here. We failed the roll, so we can focus, and I will choose to focus this 3 investigation dice here, and then we have to discard one of these as well, so we now only have 2 dice left, and well, this is bad. This is yeah. Oh, let's just roll. Yes! Great! We have another 3 investigation here. Awesome. Great. I was about to say, don't do any math. Actually, that's my tip for you. Don't do math in this game. Just roll dice. Just toss the dice and see what happens. And if you die, you die. Who cares? Don't take so long to, you know, figure something out. Well, you can figure small things out, like should I add the dice? Should I add the red or the yellow die, but don't look at the how many dice you have left and do a bunch of math and stuff. Just toss the dice. Just be dumb like Ashcan Pete. Or me. I'm dumber than Ashcan Pete, I think. So here we have 6 investigation to complete the second task. And we take the die here that we have focused or stored and secured. It's called secured. We take the die that we have secured on Ashcan Pete's spell, and it will complete the last part of the adventure. Great, finally. Awesome. So now the card is resolved. I don't really know what happens to investigators that are stuck on a card that's not refilled. So what I do is I just move them back to their character sheet. So they are kind of in a neutral zone. You could also move them to the entrance if you want. I don't really know. I don't think there are any cards that say any investigators in a room or on an entrance. That would just mean that card could equally well say any investigator, just to get that effect into well, I don't know what I'm talking about. Just shut up. Yes, we managed to do this. We get an elder sign. Awesome. So these are the elder signs. They look great. These are a bit bigger than the Arkham Horror elder signs, so that's great. I think it's kind of funny that these are the Doom tokens and these are the elder signs. They're enormous in comparison, but yeah. And the elder sign immediately goes underneath the Great Old One to symbolize that we are now a bit closer to defeating the Great Old One. We need 12 elder signs, so basically it's a race to 12. Either the Great Old One gets 12 Doom tokens, or we gain 12 elder signs, and that's how you win the game. The next here is we have to spawn a monster as well. This card will not be replaced, so we cannot add anything to the board. We now have to spawn the monster here on this one spot that's left. Let's see the monster. This, that is, let's see, that's vampire. I hid behind, I thought it said I bid behind. It's kind of small, the H is really small. I hid behind the door, but the beast wasn't fooled. It could smell my blood. Okay. This is a vampire. It needs a terror and a scroll to defeat. It's pretty difficult to defeat. And this is bad. This is pretty bad because now this adventure here is really difficult to resolve. I think we need one more of those Flute of the Other Gods. Flute of the Outer Gods. Unique items, but I don't know if there are any left in the game. Anyway, that was the Peculiar Specimen. We have successfully resolved that, and the clock will now move to strike midnight, unfortunately. We now have this effect from the last turn in the Lurking Shadows. The next time the clock strikes midnight, all investigators lose 2 sanity. That is pretty bad for some of these guys. Gloria goes down to 2 sanity. Ashcan Pete goes down to 2 sanity. And Jenny Barnes goes down to 4 sanity. Okay. Then there are no other midnight effects, so then we have to draw the next Mythos event card, and it's this one. It says a warning. There is no immediate effect today, so that's great. Nothing happens, but then this is probably pretty bad down here. A warning of a conspiracy. all tasks that require at least one investigation result require an additional investigation result. And this is a lingering effect for this day. But on the other hand, no doom tokens were added to the tracks. So this is pretty good actually. There are not that many tasks that require investigation tokens. There are only these 3, so we have 3 other tasks that we can, well, there's actually this one too, but it's not that bad actually. This one is pretty bad. I don't think we can do that one this particular day, but that's okay. I think we can still do the pond one on, and well, the vampire one is too hard anyway, so yeah. Okay, so Jenny Barnes is up next, and she will use her special ability to discard this spell, Shriveling, gaining the yellow and the red dice to her dice pool, and she will again try to resolve this gate to elsewhere. Now you might ask yourself why I don't just roll the green die. Well, it's pretty difficult to gain. Imagine having to gain 3 6s with 6 dice, and you have to remove 1 dice for each failed attempt. I think it's pretty difficult, and my investigators are starting to get damaged and they are starting to go insane. Especially poor Gloria is in a really bad shape. So I think trying to resolve this with, well, actually I should probably have checked the entire investigator area before I made any comments. I will not be adding the red and yellow die because Jenny Barnes has clue tokens. She can re-roll any dice of her choice for those clue tokens. So I think that I will have a go at this without any extra dice. I will save my spells for future use. I think that she can easily do this without having to add extra dice, and we will also gain extra clue tokens for defeating this adventure in question. There is a chance that we could add a doom token to the ancient one, but I think it's an acceptable chance. So let's just roll the dice. It's best to be reckless. That's great. Lots of scrolls, but we just need 1 for the first task. Since we defeated the monster but failed the task, the original task is actually back in effect. So we have to do. Actually, these do not have to be done in order, so I think I will do it like this. And sadly, she can only resolve 1 task at a time, so we cannot use this third scroll here to complete the entire adventure. But we have completed the tougher of the 2 tasks, and we now have a great chance at actually completing this. So let's roll the 4 remaining dice. And it's bad. She will use 1 of her clue tokens to re-roll all of the dice. Come on. Well, I will